Always better to talk a little Royals baseball after a win over the St. Louis Cardinals. And we do it right now here on the Kaufman Corner. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live usually on Sundays at 10 o'clock, but with the holiday weekend, we've moved to Monday at 10 despite my ridiculousness. Last week, we went early at 7 because of travel for Rany in Kansas City. And I forgot I put 7 o'clock. No, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, usually on Sundays. So a little discombobulated, but back at it nonetheless. And after a Royals win, certainly happy to talk about it. We'll also discuss why Mares was sent out for a third look. Rany got grief. Got grief for actually, wanting to adhere to something that is seemingly so obvious, but people still get so upset about. Daniel Lynch is back and had a solid outing. Bobby Witt has been out of the leadoff spot for as long as Rany said he should be out of the leadoff spot. Rany said it. It happened. What are the returns on it? Michael Massey, is he finally making second base his own? Drew Waters is back, although not that strong so far. Carlos Hernandez, is he the Royals' best chip when it comes to the trade deadline? And, of course, Rany's minor league minute, if we have time to get to it. It's all coming up next here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to Kaufman Corner, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions. Project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience. With paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. Now, here's your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Yes, whether I can tweet or not. Thank you, Curtis. If I can figure out the time. We're here. We hope you find us either via the podcast or the live stream, the YouTube. It's all out there, LinkedIn, Twitter. We broadcast in all those different formats. Thank you for joining us in whichever format you found us. Remember, when we stream live, you can be a part of the conversation. See your comments in the comment section. We always appreciate that, Rany, and we always appreciate a win against the St. Louis Cardinals. That is always a good thing, is it not? Isn't that the best way to start a podcast?
It always is. You're right, especially when it leads to the Royals honoring their treasured history, the legacy of the 2014 and 2015 Royals. I, of course, refer to the numbers 17 and 38. Yes. When I wanted while I'd love the Royals to honor that team, I would have preferred that the method of honoring them did not involve a 17 and 38 record, but that is where we are. Lorenzo Cain has retired. Eric Hosmer has been released. Mike Moustakas' career is on, is flatlining. Yes, it's on life support. And Fetty Wap this week was sentenced to 6 years in prison for drug trafficking. All of which is a long way to say that life stops for no one. The world keeps on turning. And if you are stuck in the past, you are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. And I think that the history of the Royals franchise over the last 7-8 years is a testament to what happens when you get stuck in the past and you don't keep moving forward and you don't keep adjusting. An organization that was at the top of the sport 8 years ago finds itself at the bottom again because they did not adjust while other teams were. And here we are. But let's stress the positive. They dismantled the St. Louis Cardinals today. They came awfully close to what would have been an absolute historic moment in the history of Kansas City-St. Louis relations with a perfect game completely out of the blue. And I'm still quite a bit disappointed that it didn't happen, because I do think that they could have handled this game differently.
Yeah, I am too, and I had the exact same thought that you did, and that is, why are you sending Mayers back out there to see a lineup for the third time? Listen, if you thought this guy was a guy who had no hit stuff, he would have started the game, right? You used an opener for a reason.
Or he would have started the season in the major leagues.
Yes.
I mean,
listen, I do want to celebrate him as a positive, and this performance as a positive, and this game is a positive. It certainly is. There was a lot of Twitter blowback, and I agree with you 100%. Go for it. Going for it. It's not like, what was there to be gained for him continuing to pitch? He'd already not pitched the first inning, so there was nothing there. So you got to do the best thing to, one, I think, try to go for the perfect game in the no-hitter against the Cardinals, because you're there in St. Louis. You know it's a rivalry game. What a statement you can make. But two, also, like, this is what Mayers is going to be. Any thought that, oh, no, we're turning the corner with this 31-year-old journeyman, and we're going to turn him into a guy who's going to be a horse and go 8 innings on a regular basis. No, you got it. It's like, put the money in your pocket and run. Like, what are you waiting for? And bring in the bullpen pieces and try to finish this thing out for history. So I can't understand why anybody would have had an issue with what you were saying.
well, here's what I was saying, right? That I completely disagreed with sending Mike Mayers out there for 7th inning. I probably would have pulled him after 5 personally, but six innings, 18 batters,
18 batters.
third time through the lineup.
Yeah.
And it was the heart of the Cardinals lineup. And to the people, and there were quite a few of them saying, geez, this is one of the best Royals games of the season. Why do you have to be so negative after the game? It's because I don't really care about the wins or the losses right now. I'm not going to be too down when they lose and too up when they win. I care about, is this organization heading in the right direction? So whether or not they, won the game, they got even a perfect game, that's less relevant to me than, is the new management in place making decisions appropriately? And to me, it's the thought process that went behind sending him out there in the 8th inning that I want to question, because he did not start the game. And I cannot stress that enough. If he had started the game, yes, the tradition of baseball is that a perfect game is not really, or even a no-hitter, it's not a team accomplishment. It is an individual accomplishment. And yes, the defense obviously has a huge part in it, but we don't remember the defensive players that took part in a no-hitter unless they make an amazing catch to save the game. We remember the pitcher. And one of the sad sort of side effects of the way that baseball has changed over the last 30 to 40 years, with the emphasis on pitch counts and not letting pitchers throw too many pitches, which I am as personally responsible for as anyone. But it has been, I think, a very good thing.
Co-founder of Baseball Prospectus. If you don't read the bio on the podcast, just that's where that comes from.
Well, it's more the pitcher abuse points.
Yes.
That from
but I'm saying
years
in your
ago.
work with that.
Yes, and work. I take credit and blame to whatever extent one person
Credit
working on the outside. No. I'll take blame too. In this case, the blame is that no hitters are not, or frequently, no longer an individual accomplishment. In fact, I would say, I don't know the exact numbers, but probably close to half, if not more than half, of the no hitters of the last 5 to 10 years have been a multi-pitcher accomplishment. Because just 9 innings for any pitcher is so many pitches that they're rarely allowed to do that anymore. The one exception would be the perfect game, because you're only facing 27 batters. Exactly. It's rare that you would go beyond 100 pitches, 105 pitches, maybe tops. But here's the thing. He did not start the game. It would be one thing if Mike Myers had started the game and gone 6 or 7 innings. This would nobody would ever bring up that he was allowed to continue to pitch. Jorge Lopez for the Royals 5 years ago took a perfect game into the 9th inning. That was his game to throw, his game to succeed or fail. I was devastated for him when he didn't get it, but there was never a thought in my mind, oh, gee, the Royals should maximize our odds of getting the perfect game here by pulling him, because you want perfect games to be an individual accomplishment. But he was not going to be the only pitcher in this game regardless. Josh Stillmont started the game. So once you realize this is a bullpen game, there's never been a multi-pitcher perfect game in Major League history. Every perfect game ever pitched has been one pitcher only. But there hasn't been a perfect game thrown in close to a decade now, I want to say. And so in the modern era, this may happen just because so many teams start with the opener, not realizing that this could be the day that history is made. So by the time you get to the seventh inning, Matt Quatraro, yes, you want to win and you want to maximize your odds of winning too, but a perfect game. It's not even a no-hitter. A perfect game's never been done in Royals history. It's been done like 25 times in Major League history against the St. Louis Cardinals. In St. Louis. I'm sorry, that as a Royals fan, maybe he doesn't have the background of being a Royals fan that we are. That's worth 2 or 3 or 20 or 30 wins for you and me. Like that would have been an incredible accomplishment. And so you've got to make the decision based on how do you maximize the odds of a perfect game here? Because Mike Myers, if he throws 6 innings or 7 innings or even 8 innings, it's not the same thing as throwing 9 innings. So 6 innings is plenty. He was going to be the winning pitcher regardless. He would have been the name that everyone remembered. But you're 6 outs away from history. How do you let a guy like that go into a lineup for a third time when you've got, he ended up using Taylor Clark and Amir Garrett, not even his star relievers, and they got 6 outs. After they pulled Mike Myers, it just sort of proves the point. But you could have used Aroldis Chapman, you could use Scott Barlow. I think the worry with using a guy like Aroldis Chapman is more the walks than the hits. Like if you're trying to preserve a no hitter, there are very few pitchers I'd rather have on the mound than Aroldis Chapman. But I understand the walk concern. But Mike Myers had done his job. Why is he going back out there? Don't you think he wants to be part of history? I think you'd much rather have thrown 6 innings in a perfect game than throw 8 innings and not a perfect game.
Well, the only frustration, and listen again today, all positive, right? Positive game. We're picking nits here, but it was a chance to have a very, very shiny silver lining in what has been a very cloudy season for the Kansas City Royals. So that's why we do it. And by the way, it's a freaking podcast, so that's what you do. You pick nits. But it does concern me a little bit. Listen, I know how deep, and I love reading the stuff that you write and other analytics people, but this one is just so simple. You don't even have to dive that deep. It's just guys are either 9 batter guys, 18 batter guys, or 18. They're 27 plus, right? Like, and there's only a handful that are more than 18. I'm sorry. This is not that difficult. And I routinely watch manager after manager send a guy out there to put 2 guys on. And fortunately, the bullpen slammed the door and did the job. But to put 2 guys on, start a rally, get a couple of runs across, and in the end up taxing the bullpen as much as whatever the only excuse they had was, well, we were really trying to cut down on our bullpen. We wanted to go as far as we could with him. When in reality, it's like, well, you're the only guy in the room that really follows baseball and pitching numbers that thought that you had a shot at this. And it's the number 4 hitter coming up. And they're lucky it wasn't smoke for a home run.
Right. And it's Mike Myers. Again, it's the third batter through the lineup thing is like almost irrelevant. We're talking about a guy who is the definition of a journeyman. And all more power to him. He pitched an incredible game, and he's probably got a future with this team, at least for this season. But this isn't Zach Greinke going out there for a 7th inning. Right, this is Mike Myers. That's why I would have pulled him after 5. I'm like, no, it had nothing to do with the third time through the line, but it's more he's living on borrowed time.
Yeah, but
I want the best pitcher out there for the rest of this game.
I'm with you, and I have no real rub against the 5th time or after 5 innings because he was facing 1, 2, 3. Right. Exactly. For a second time. And so I look at Myers and I see him as what the back of his baseball card says he is, a journeyman. Right, a guy that in short stints had been effective 2 years ago, but had a disappointing year last year. And so I would have no argument if they pulled him after 5 because I'd say, okay, he's back around to the top. He wants to come at him with some fresh, high velocity ammunition here and try to go, maybe 1 1/3, 1 2/3, maybe 2 innings with somebody and then close it out with a 9th. Fine. He gets through the next one. Okay, he understands this guy can get him out twice. I believe in Myers. We've given him some new bullets to fire, and we think it'll work. We think he can get through twice. The 3rd time was just ridiculous. That's it. That's all I have to say. It was still positive. Now the question becomes, is he a starter? Or is this like Ryan Yarbrough has started, but the most effective pitcher he's ever been was chasing an opener in Tampa. And I will give them credit. I am thrilled to see them embracing the opener as they've needed to get through these spots, and they seem to be doing it really well. But what do you do with him here moving forward? Is he go into your rotation? Do you constantly use him as an I like him with the opener thing. It's working. Don't fix what ain't broke.
How would you say he's essentially he is a starter now, right? He threw 6 innings today, and that's right. He's a 5 to 6 inning guy. That's what he is, right? Whether that's the first through the 5th inning or the second through the 6th inning, kind of irrelevant. I like the concept of the opener. I think it worked well. Josh Stomont pitched very well. Carlos Hernandez pitched well in that role. So if they want to keep him in this role, I'm completely fine with it. I would think of him as a starter. This is, he's taking Brad Keller's spot in the rotation. The fact that he's starting the game 3 outs later is just a cosmetic thing. And yeah, I think he's earned the opportunity. There's one more thing I do want to say about letting him go out there for the third time through the lineup is that this has kind of been a weak spot for Matt Quatraro all season long, in specifically the 6th inning, right? Like letting pitchers work into the 6th inning, and I'm kind of exasperated by it because Matt Quatraro is coming from the Tampa Bay Rays. Like this is the one thing I thought he really had a really good handle on, and I'm getting the same 6th inning jitters that I used to get with Ned Yost, right before the playoffs, and the results are just dramatic. I don't know if you know this.
Go ahead.
How many runs have the Royals given up this year in the 5th inning? Out of how many games have we played now?
50, we just 55. This was 55 today. Right. So in the 5th inning, I'm gonna say it's like 20,
21, very close. In the 7th inning, how many?
Right around the same thing.
19.
Okay.
In the 6th inning,
65.
Okay, 55. Like 65. 65 is insane. 55. Their average, their runs per 9 innings. So like ERA, just RA. In the 5th inning, 3.5. In the 7th inning, 3.17. In the 6th, it's 9.17. They're giving up almost 3 times as many runs in the 6th inning.
So let me
That's because you're letting the starting pitcher work a third time through the lineup with guys who don't have the ability to do that.
I agree, and I would like to see him pulled, but I don't think any of the Royal starting pitchers are getting traded, right? I would be open to trading a Brady Singer for all the reasons we've talked about here because of where I think the rebuild is coming in. However, I don't think they are, and so therefore they know their most attractive pieces are the bullpen pieces, and they don't want to tax the bullpen. It's almost somewhat of we've got to, because we all know the best bullpens throw the fewest innings, right? Like overusing the bullpen is what if you want glossy stats, you need to use guys an acceptable amount. Not
if you want to use glossy stats, sure, because obviously
which is what they want to trade a guy.
Well, to trade it, if you're saying to trade a guy, well,
yeah,
you
that's use the whole purpose. I think the reason he may be, I'm a hopeful. I don't know. And I'll ask him, when they get back to town, maybe I'll get into hey, why you keep pushing the 6th inning? You suck there. What's your problem, man? I'll do it in a much more politically correct way because I like asking him questions and he gives thoughtful answers. But that'll be the gist of it. But I think the only, and I don't think I'm going to get this as an answer because I don't think you can't say this, but I do feel from conversations that I've had that they know that they've got the bullpen chips to trade. And if the goal is to make them as shiny as possible, then I'm okay with it, right? If that it's a lot of the times when Jordan Lyles takes his beating, right?
Yes, I was going to say of those 55 runs, I'm wondering if like 48 of them are Jordan Lyles. It's quite possible. But anyway, you broke the seal on his name, so I just want to point out very quickly that what the lesson of Mike.
He went 5 the other day.
Yeah, he did. And he gave up 5 runs and lost the game. The point I want to make about Mike Myers is this is why it was so ridiculous to give Jordan Lyles 2 years, $17 million, because guys like Mike Myers are available for free and they can pitch just as well. Guess what? Mike Myers won a game today. The Royals won a game in which Mike Myers pitched today, which means he's different than Jordan Lyles. Because Jordan Lyles, the Royals have not won a single game.
What can I point out? How many runs do you think Jordan Lyles had given up before the 6th inning?
I mean, he's given up a lot of runs in every. How many runs did he give up total?
How many against Washington had he given up before the 6th inning?
That's a good question. Hold on. He's given up, what, 50?
No, I have the answer, so guess. Don't look it up.
Well, no, I'm looking at how many runs he's given up total. So it wasn't like 50.
He's given up 1. So that's my whole point. The problem, I don't think, is as much Jordan Lyles. They look at Mayers and they go, journeyman. We grabbed him off the scrap heap. We signed him as a non-roster invitee. So we don't expect much from him. Jordan Lyles, we gave him a bunch of money. He needs to go out and start. Jordan Lyles should have an opener in front of him. Amir Garrett should pitch the first and then to turn some bats around, or I find when he goes up against a lefty heavy lineup and then put Lyles in there. That's what should be happening. The problem is, though, this is like running backs who get big contracts in the NFL. Well, we're going to hand off to them because we gave them the money, right? They need to, the money has got to be flushed. He is no more than Mayers, right? You pointed it out, and they need to use him the same way. Put an opener in front of him. He is maybe 18 batters. Like, I would like to see him if he never saw the third time through. What you did you just pull it? What are his numbers by inning?
I'm guessing. I mean, he's given up 55 runs.
I'll look it up.
So I'm going to guess. I mean, the reality is he's done most of his damage in earlier in the night. He's probably given up, like, I don't know, 8 runs in the 6th inning. Maybe it's more. I don't know. I know the last couple starts have been bad in that regard. But, you know, the point is he's bad in any inning. Okay, look, 11 starts, 0 wins. Do you want to know the last time a pitcher started the season with making 11 starts and that his team lost all 11 starts?
I'm not really. I mean, the A's this year.
No, it hasn't happened with any of their
guys on the A's this year.
The last pitcher to do it, the last starting pitcher to make 11 starts, you know, this first 11 starts this season, his team lost all of them, was Brian Mattis in 2011. And I believe that's the only player this century. I think Jose Urena and is the other one, but it's happened like 3 times this century, and it's the first 11 starts of his career with the Royals.
You know he sucks. Don't waste our time going on and on that he sucks. Let's dive into.
Once they win a game, once they win one game with him, then I'll
listen, here it is. I've looked it up. His ERA by inning. First inning 9, second inning 5.73, third inning 10.45, fourth inning 5.40, fifth inning 1, sixth inning 19.8. It's not good anywhere. OPS is against him. First inning 1.139. Okay, then 5.97, 8.30, 8.65, 4.29. Sixth inning 1.541. It's not good. It's not good enough anywhere, right? Clearly, we all know that. But it obviously falls off a cliff in the 6th inning. Right. So stop throwing him out there.
But they signed him for innings, Soren. So
I know, and
this is the problem. You're throwing good innings after bad. Exactly.
5 is innings. The point is, like, my point is there a way to actually make him useful? I think it'd be yes. Let's see if he's the opener. If he has an opener, he doesn't see the top of the order in the first inning where he gives up a 1.139 OPS, right? And if you don't let him see anybody a third time, you don't get to the 6th inning OPS of 1.541. And instead, you get the part that's in the middle. And I can't remember if they won't let you just add that up, but would roughly bring the overall OPS down to like 700 or maybe even like 650. All of a sudden, that's usable, but you have to actually put him in the spots where he can succeed.
I don't think it'll be quite that easy, but yes, I see your point. You let him avoid the top of the lineup in the first inning and don't let him see anybody a third time through.
It's funny. It's called Basic Management 101. Put your employees in a position to succeed, right? Stop asking them to do things they can't.
Well, the problem is that they thought he could do it. And that's the problem, right? They thought he could. They need to adjust. I do wonder, though, with that contract, will they adjust or will they continue to throw him out there every 5th day trying to justify the contract? And the reason I bring that up, there's a morbid fascination I have with, could he be the first Royals pitcher ever and just the second major league pitcher in 40 years to lose 20 games in a season?
Not until to lose 20 games? Yeah, maybe. I think that's a possibility.
He's already got 9 with 11 starts. So.
Yeah. Will they release him this year? Probably not until they find the guys that can push him out innings.
That's why I think he's got a chance, because the alternative is for them. I'll be very impressed if he doesn't, because they release him or they move him out of the rotation.
I'm calling off the jam on Jordan Lyles. The Kaufman Corner is brought to you by the Gann Asphalt and Concrete, folks. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. Rany, let's turn our attention to Daniel Lynch. He is back, 5 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 6 Ks. Strikeout to walk ratio on the rehab part of the equation, I think it was 18-3. The ERA is kind of mixed, the hits, everything, but strikeout to walk, he at least was, power pitching with control. Listen, and it took the usual Royals young starting pitcher 95 pitches to get through 5 1/3. Only 57 strikes. What do you make of the first go round for Lynch?
I am cautiously optimistic. I mean, his performance in AAA, it reminded me of a typical sort of AAA rehab for an established veteran pitcher who's just kind of working out the kinks, getting his innings in, not really worried about hits allowed, but he was overpowering hitters. Like his last start out, especially, I think went like 6 innings, 3 base runners, no walks, 5 strikeouts. He was, almost like toying with the hitters. Like he was, which is what you want to see from a guy, because he hasn't really established himself as a major league pitcher yet, but he certainly pitched in AAA like a major leaguer who was just there to get his work in. And then he came out and pitched well. His fastball velocity was down less than a mile an hour from last year, which, his first start, maybe a little tentative. The one thing that struck out was his slider had a little bit more bite on it, a little more velocity. And, I'm obviously, with all the hype that you and I had with Kris Bubic to start the year, could Daniel Lynch was the guy that we thought that we hoped the new coaching foundation would help to take a step forward, the step forward that we saw from Kris Bubic. Could Lynch still be that guy? And with Bubic on the IL for the next year, that's kind of what we have to hope for. But I still believe in Daniel Lynch. I believe in the talent, and now I sort of believe in the coaching. I think they can at least not make things worse and hopefully make things better. It was a good first start, and of the guys in the rotation now, the guy you want to watch when you go to the ballpark, the guy you hope you get. I mean, it's always going to be Zach Greinke for me, number one. But at this point, Daniel Lynch has to be number 2. He's moved ahead of Brady Singer, just because, his upside is still better than anybody else in the organization.
Are you content if we get an opener for Lyles and or Mayers? If Singer, Greinke, Lyles, Lynch, Mayers is where they go, or are you drooling to get Brad Keller back on the starting bump?
No. You had me there in the first half. I was going to say, I'm not satisfied with that 5, but that's probably the best starting 5. But right now, Mike Myers, I'd rather have Mike Myers start. And frankly, when Brad Keller comes back, put him in the bullpen and see if you catch lightning in a bottle long enough to make him a trade candidate at the deadline.
That's what I think too.
I'm looking for I'm looking for long-term solutions here. Like, what are we going to do in 2024, 2025? Brad Keller is not going to be starting for this team next year. He probably won't be pitching for this team. But if he is, it's going to be out of the bullpen if he finds a new gear throwing, to 3 or 4 batters a game instead of to 25. And we're not going to find that out until they try it. There have been a lot of pitchers the Royals let go before they give them a chance in the bullpen and then found themselves in the bullpen in some other organization. Jorge Lopez, I mentioned earlier in this podcast, who have found themselves and become, excellent major league pitchers, pitching 1 inning at a time instead of 5 or 6 innings at a time. Maybe it's time to find out if Brad Keller can do that.
We can agree there's literally nothing coming from the minor leagues.
Not anytime soon. Probably not anytime this year. Maybe Noah Cameron at some point, but Alec Marsh is disappointed after a hot start in AA, and those guys are in AA right now. There's the AAA team, not much to write home there. So this is what it is.
If you had to, you would probably run out at what is he, 31 years old? No, Mayers is 31 years old. Austin Cox.
Well, yeah, we saw Austin Cox earlier. I mean, we saw Jackson Kowar briefly, Max Castillo. Like there are
Course,
some guys there, but like
Course
we've
not
seen them.
starting. That ship is sailed.
No, right? Of course, right. I'm just saying in general, like Jonathan Heasley, like maybe, but we've seen these guys, and there's no there.
Yeah, but do you still hold out hope that Lynch can be more than an 18 batter guy himself?
Baby steps. Like you don't want to project anybody too far from their current level of performance. I would happily take him being a good 18 batter pitcher, right? A good 5 inning guy. I think the type of pitcher he is, the fact that he has 4 usable pitches, that is the profile of pitcher that drops off less the third and fourth time through a lineup than most, right? It's the 2-pitch guys that don't do well a third time through the lineup because the batters already had a chance to see all other pitches by the time they see him a third time. So Lynch, if he becomes a quality starter, is also the kind of guy who could probably go 27 batters instead of 18. But baby steps. I've learned, through hard experience, not to get too far ahead of myself in terms of the optimism. I'd be very happy with him being a good 5-inning guy right
now. Yeah. Tell me, Brady Singer, where are you? Where's your optimism on where he's sitting?
I think the potential is there because he did it last year. Like, I don't think that he's a fundamentally different person. He's not a fundamentally different arm. He hasn't had an arm injury that would make him incapable he did last year. He is broken and they're trying to fix it. I mean, he was better this last time out. Early at the beginning of the year, the one thing that really stood out, which we looked at as, this might be a positive, this might be a sign of them coaching him up, was that his extension was farther, was closer to the plate. His release point was something like 6 inches closer to the plate than it was last year. And we thought, well, that's something generally you want to let go of the ball closer to home plate because it gives the batter less of a reaction time. But given how badly he's pitched, maybe he's extending himself too far, and that's reducing the bite on his pitches, which is obviously important. So they need to figure that out. I don't know. I think he deserves every opportunity to get it right. His trade value is shot. So, like, what are you going to do? You're just going to run him out there. But we're gonna find out something about the quality of the coaching right now, and I am still believe that they could fix him. I think this might be a good time to talk about Michael Massey because we've seen how coaching may have paid off there. We may have been, or I personally may have been, too quick to write him off as needing some time in AAA, and I think we should give the Royals some credit for sticking with him and the fact that he has turned things around in a dramatic way.
Yeah, I think you start to get back towards. But listen, I know everybody wants to. The one thing I grow weary of is the fans, and I get wanting to be a fan and wanting to see the positives happen and liking the positives. But it's like, I watch Twitter and Bobby Witt Jr. hits 2 home runs and everyone's like, there he is, that's the guy. And they eliminate, like, let's talk about him here as well, because Bobby Witt Jr. hit 3 home runs in 4 games. It sandwiched 2 games where he went 0 for 8 with no walks. He hit 3 home runs in 4 games and dropped his on-base percentage from 277 to 270. That's not easy to do. That's not easy to do when you scare the piss out of a pitcher that, I can go yard like nobody's business, and I hit rockets when I barrel it up, and yet you still are, and I think he had 5 strikeouts in that 0 for 8 as well. So, he's all of that. And Michael Massey is the cold start until he stacks up a bunch of these runs that he's on now and hangs a 335 on base percentage at the end of the year. He is still a sub 300 on base guy, but the signs are very positive. Right now, the question is, can he sustain it? Is it fixed? Is the swing fixed? What, because that's where I don't understand how Bobby Witt Jr. was getting on base at a 360 clip in AAA 2 years ago, and now can't get on base at a 300 clip at the big league level. I can't get it, other than the fact that his father pitched to him as a youth, and he got used to chasing everything because his dad couldn't throw strikes. That's literally the only theory I've got for how that would work. But yeah, I am very optimistic that some pieces are falling in place. And you had a tweet, I pulled it out, where you said, the ages of today's starting lineup. And I don't know if this was today or yesterday. When was it?
I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Yesterday. Prado 24, Pascantino 25, Perez 23, Witt 22, Melendez 24, Massey 25, Garcia 23, Waters 24, Lopez 28. You said that right there is your entire case for optimism. 7 everyday hitters, 25 and under. You had to pick something to build around. That's it. And it is when we talk about squinting and being able to see it. Can you squint and see it? Do I see it in 24? Do I see it in 25? You can start to squint and see it when you got Massey and Witt doing what they've done, and Drew Waters is back. Let's see him hit. We'll get to him here in a minute. You can start to see it at times like that. You can squint and see it when you have that kind of lineup. That okay, if everybody gets better, but they all do have to get better, right? All those 20 somethings, none of them are hitting good enough right now. Can we agree with that?
Yes. I mean, the problem you say, but you can squint and see it, is that I've been squinting since like August of last year, and I'm still squinting. Like that case for optimism, it was essentially the entire case we had for all the optimism we had over the winter. And last year on this podcast, I talked about how the Royals had, six, seven. There were all these stats that come up with how many rookies they had on the team with an OPS plus of at least 100 or 90, and like they were in historic territory in terms of their rookie crop. And it basically those 7 guys, right? The Michael Garcia was really the only one who wasn't. But the other guys, and that's why having Drew Waters back really kind of focuses your eye on that, because that really adds one more 2,500 guy to the lineup. And we just sort of, he's been out of sight, out of mind all season, but he's absolutely part of this, right? He's part of this rebuild. He's a core member of that case for optimism. But they haven't taken a step. None of those guys have taken a step forward. Maybe Nick Pratto is in a better place now than he was last year. I would say Nick Pratto probably is. But is there anybody else who's like a demonstrably better player of those guys than they were in September of last year? I mean, go through the Bobby Witt. No, at best he's held serve. I will say 2 weeks ago, when Witt was hitting like 230 with like a 270 OBP, I tweeted out that I knew it was going to attract a little bit of controversy. Basically, the statement that, I'm not saying the Royals should send him to Omaha to get his bat straightened out, and, oh, by the way, get themselves a year back of service time, which is really the main reason. Use his struggles as an excuse. But I'm just saying they could. And, I mean, I caught more hell for that tweet than I have had for anything this season. And then he had the 2-homer game the other day. It's like, okay, well, maybe, he's fixing things. Every time you think he is, then he goes out there and goes 0 for 12 and has no walks. And here we are, and his OBP right now is 270. I mean, Michael Massey had the worst possible April you could imagine and has a 296 OBP. The difference between 270 and 296 is substantial. I mean, it's one thing to not have a 300 OBP. Okay, 270 from a guy, all we hear about is, he's on a historic pace for home runs and stolen bases. I believe he's the youngest player ever to have 10 homers and 15 steals by the end of May.
Well, they did change the rules on stolen bases.
Well, but also stolen bases aren't that valuable on their own. The Royals have been a test case for this for decades. The Royals have always ranked well in stolen bases. How has that helped them win? Stolen bases are a luxury. And every now and then, they're an absolute necessity. And we obviously have cases in that in throughout Royals history, but they're anecdotal cases. They're individual cases. On-base average is still the most important stat for a hitter. And Bobby Witt is taking a step backward in that regard. Michael Massey is basically back to where he was at the end of last year, which is a credit to him. I mean, well, we can review his numbers, but he's had a fantastic May, which not coincidentally happened after he drew his first walk of the season on April 30th, right? His April numbers, he had 167 with a 173 OBP, 1 extra base hit, a double, 1 walk, that walk on April 30th, and 31 Ks. Since then, May, 323 batting average, 420 on base, 544 slug, 9 walks and 20 Ks. His strikeout rate has come down quite a bit too. I mean, it's 2 completely different players. If you reversed the time, the chronology of that. At the end of April, if he had his May numbers at the end of April, we'd be talking about this guy's going to be a star and is the big breakout. And then I'd obviously much rather him do it in this order because we're hoping that he's fixed. But he is at best back to where he was last year. Pasquantino has been in a slump of late. I still believe in him, but he's not. I don't think he's a demonstrably better player than he was last year. He's a good hitter, the best hitter on the team, but not a superstar. Melendez has taken a step back. All of these. Drew Waters has been hurt. So this is the problem, is that we still have optimism, but we've wasted 6 months and they haven't moved forward one bit.
Contract negotiations can be a distraction, and he's acknowledged that those conversations have been had. That's one thing to keep in mind. Two, he's such a good hitter and still has good at bats, although he did look at a couple of dead heart of the plate pitches today that I was like, what are you waiting on there, kid? But again, the track record it says that this guy's going to be fine. So I don't have much fear for him. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They are hiring one of Kansas City's fastest growing companies, one of the best places in Kansas City to work. All positions, project manager, truck drivers, operators, crew members, starting pay up to $30 per hour based upon experience, paid time off, and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more information. Make sure you tell them you heard about them on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Again, go to GannAsphalt.com. How about Nick Prado, though? Still liking the at-bats, the patience, the way he works the count. I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing.
I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I'm still nervous that this is just fool's gold. I mean, today, he went 3 for 6, but he struck out twice. So, he was on balls in play, he hit 750, right? His strikeout rate remains really high for a guy who's basically a high average, low power hitter at this point. Like, he's hitting a bunch of line drives, but he's not hitting the ball over the wall a lot, which is fine if you're making a lot of contact. He's still striking out at 32% of his plate appearances, down from 35% last year. He's incrementally better, but he either needs to make more contact or hit the ball for more power. I'm worried that he's going to go into a tailspin, and we're going to look up and he's going to be hitting 250 with no power. And then how valuable is that? But for the time being, he has made 2 massive adjustments to his swing since he entered pro ball. And he's still only 24. I mean, that's what happens when you take a guy out of high school. And all the credit to him, he had that first adjustment took him from non-prospect to prospect. The second adjustment over this past winter may have taken him from quadruple A guy to a guy who can survive and thrive in the major leagues. But I need him to take that one last half step. I need him to get back to the contact rate he showed in the minors this year, without sacrificing the power that he showed in the minors.
Are you a believer that Witt's improved play is because he's not in the leadoff spot? Or is it and again, we've mentioned he's still not getting on base, but he has been popping the ball. There have been moments he's looked more comfortable at times. You think it is just that shouldn't really be a thing, right?
Right.
But I mean, guys, it is.
First off, shout out to whoever it is in the Royals organization who was listening to us last week and immediately not just dropped Bobby Witt down in the lineup, but let off Nick Prado.
So we talked about
applause. The rare case where the Royals did exactly what you and I thought they should do. These are rare moments that we should savor them when we can. But it's kind of funny because we're now in 7 games out of the leadoff spot. He wasn't a patient hitter before, but now it's have they taken away all incentive for him to take pitches because he's drawn 0 walks since he moved out of the leadoff spot, hitting for a little more power. It's been 7 games. I don't want to read too much into anything. Again, if he's not going to be a patient hitter, you might as well lean into it and make him a table clearer instead of a table setter. But taking pitches that are not swinging at pitches that are outside of the strike zone is valuable no matter where you bat in the lineup. But that shouldn't be your incentive to do the right thing. It's just he's young. He's obviously had phenomenal potential since he was drafted. He has the ability to do this. I hope he's in the right organization to learn. He doesn't have to become Ricky Henderson all of a sudden. I'm not asking him to take, thousands of pitches. It's just don't swing at sliders in the dirt. Just, don't take your hitting cues from Salvador Perez. Salvador Perez is a unicorn. And, and he would benefit from swinging at fewer sliders in the dirt. If he can just be average in this regard, you'll get that OBP over 300. And he'll have more opportunities to steal. I've always felt that the Royals, their obsession with stolen bases would serve them well if they used that to tell their hitters, hey, you know how you can steal even more bases? Get on first base more. If you take a walk, like
That's what Ricky did, by the way.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
what
well,
Ricky
exactly.
did.
Well,
That's what
exactly.
Rock Raines did.
That's what exactly. That's what the best leadoff hitters of all time did. But it's like, if you don't believe in walks because you want them to swing back, just believe in walks because it'll help them pad their steals total. Like, if you think the stolen base is so valuable, why wouldn't you want to encourage your players to have more opportunities to steal bases? Sometimes it's amazing to me that that Witt has stolen as many bases as he has when he's not on first base a lot because he doesn't walk a lot, and of course a lot of his hits are for extra bases. You're not going to steal a base after you hit a home run or a triple, and he's hit, he's done a lot of those. Adalberto Mondesi somehow stole like 40 bases in a season and was like never on first base. How the hell do you do that? I mean, part of it is because you're stealing third base a lot. The Royals certainly encourage that, but it's like, wouldn't you like them to be on first base so they can steal second more?
I love Matt says now we just have to figure out who in this chat is Matt Quatrero. Somebody's there taking notes while it's all said and done. Of course, Drury said your name is Matt. I've met Matt. I can tell you he is not Matt Quatrero. He is Matt Rowland for sure. We have shared our love of fine cuts of meat at the hen house in the past.
We're going to start asking people for their driver's license. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Who's the mole in the comment section?
How much concern do you have that Drew Waters has 6 Ks in his first 13 ABs?
Not a lot. It's 13 ABs. I mean, it's funny. I talked about how Daniel Lynch, struck me in AAA in his starts as, kind of just a major leaguer going through the motions. Drew Waters, I don't know if you saw, he got to Omaha after he'd been rehabbing and extended spring training for a few weeks. He gets to Omaha in his first 6 games. He was 1 for 22. And, not hitting well. And then starting from game 7 on and over 7 games, he went 16 for 30. With 5 walks, 9 extra base hits. And I mean, so even after his 1 for 22 start, his numbers in AAA before he got back to the major leagues were he had 327, 397, 635. Like a major leaguer rehabbing in AAA, which, okay, sounds like, well, that's what he was. But a year ago today, he was not just a AAA player, he was a AAA player in danger of losing his prospect status entirely before the Royals traded for him, adjusted his approach, and he turned it on for the Royals at the major league level. So that to me is a really good sign that after tentatively getting started in AAA, he's coming back from an oblique injury, probably feeling himself out. He just absolutely dominated in Omaha for a week before he got the call up. His defense looks good. He made a really good play to keep the perfect game going today in center field. And that's obviously going to be a big part of his value. Can he be a center fielder, or is he going to be, in the long run, a good defensive corner outfielder? I don't know yet. But for the time being, he's the best center field option they have. His strikeout rate is, 6 and 13 plate appearances is too high, obviously, but I think it's going to come back down. I think he's going to be a 1 and 4 strikeout kind of guy, which is acceptable with the range of talents he has.
Let's point out that he started, I think, 1 for 22.
Yeah, 1 for 22, and then 16 for 30 after that.
Yeah. So
I mean, the last week in Omaha was a man among boys playing,
yes.
And that's my point. It's like that's what I want to see. This guy deserves to be in the major leagues. He is. He's still only 24, and he literally was in an Atlanta Brave fading prospect a year ago. So I'm still hoping that he has a chance to be a real Royals success story.
All right, we got a couple things we want to talk about in the minor leagues when we get to our minor league minute here in a second. But let's talk about Carlos Hernandez. Is he now the top trade chip for the Royals? I mean, what he's doing is he's pitching very well, but when you see him pop the radar gun like that, that's the kind of thing that gets other teams excited. I know the inclination is going to be like, we can't trade him. He's our best guy. That bullpen pieces with control are things teams covet and will sometimes overpay if they're in a pennant race. Like everybody not named Singer and Lynch is an easy trade, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Carlos Hernandez, he's absolutely not just the most valuable guy in the bullpen. He might be the most valuable pitcher on the major league roster, period, if he's put on the market. And I think it would be very ballsy for them to do it. I would not be furious if they don't, simply because, well, 2 things. You got literally 5 years of club control. There's no ticking clock here, but also if there's a chance that you think he can be a starting pitcher still, trading him now
Okay, so let's talk
still
about
be
that.
trading him before he maximizes his value.
He can't. There's
You don't think he can
my
ever
2
do it?
cents. I mean, like, how long do we have to watch? How many times do you have to watch Royals pitchers come up, have stuff, and then just get their brains beat in, and the Royals keep running them out there for 4 years because they can't find anybody else to start, and then at the end they maybe have 1 year of good relieving, Luke Haver, right? Like, let's get Wade Davis to what Wade Davis is great at. And if you want to put him there and leave him there and say, okay, we've got some anchor pieces, fine. Listen, I am not of the mindset that you offer a guy and just take what the best offer is. No, you put him out there, and only if you get what you think is a premium franchise building prospect in the mix or a great package of prospects do you move. I'm not saying put everybody up there and take whatever you get. No, he has value, but he should be put on the blocks, and offers should be solicited because he is the one that can bring the most. And that's what I'll come back to. You mentioned all the young guys in the lineup. We talk about the pitching staff. Like 3 years from now, how many guys are you counting on? How many guys do you think are holding down the spots that they've got right now? And I think at the end of the day, or do you know, how many will you put your reputation on? Will you put your reputation on the fact that Nick Prado is at least a 7-year big leaguer? And he can play first and or outfield and will hit at an acceptable rate and power on base. Will you put your reputation that Nick Prado is the real deal, Rany?
No, I mean,
okay. The only guy you would answer yes to are probably 2 guys, Pasquantino and Bobby Witt Jr., right?
Probably. Right.
So if that's the case, if you go 50% on the rest of the bunch, you're probably doing well. How many of the pitchers will you put your name on are going to be frontline starting pitchers?
Frontline starting pitchers?
Yes.
That's a really hard.
Singer, here ended the list.
Well, and even Singer, it's like,
I will take him. He's a red ass. He's a competitor. He will eventually. They will get him going in the right direction.
It's probabilistic on all these guys. Like I would put Lynch and Bubic, one of those two. I think you talk about 50,
but the point is to not break down every guy on the roster. The point is to say that if none of us will put our name next to it,
right,
they won't either, and it's not enough guys.
Right.
So if Carlos Hernandez on the open market will bring you a premium prospect and A-ball
absolutely,
next to be a franchise builder, then he goes.
Right. Sure. No, I mean, Carlos Hernandez right now might be the guy that if you had to bet on one pitcher in the organization that would be a valuable member, not necessarily a starter, but like a playoff caliber major league pitcher in some capacity in 2 or 3 years, he might be the number one guy on the list because he's proven he can be an excellent reliever. His velocity, like you talk about the danger of moving him back. I agree because like one of the reasons why he's much more effective this year, his velocity is up 2 to 3 miles an hour, which is not surprising. What bullpen guys do. I do think that they've made his stuff plays better up in the zone, and they've made some adjustments in terms of getting him to throw more high fastballs. And with his velocity, that works. I think he's the fourth or fifth in the major leagues in average fastball velocity this year, right directly ahead of his teammate Aroldis Chapman. So he has improved his status as much as any pitcher in the organization.
Yes, for sure.
But you don't trade him unless you can get a substantial amount, a top 100 prospect type amount.
Let's keep in mind it's still a 3.33 ERA, a FIP of 2.95, which is the only one that's ever been below 4 in his career. Now, part of that's because they kept running him out there as a starter. The strikeouts per 9 are not 15 or 16; they're 12. All right, so that's why anytime somebody like Pisa drop, they are just the best of that, and they're going to get better in the minds of every Royals fan out there. Hernandez is now Wade Davis plus in their mind, and he's not. So if they trade him and they get quality prospects, don't come crying to me. That's what I mean.
Obviously they have to. The key there is get quality prospects. I knowing the Royals, how reluctant they are to make trades, to be transactional. Maybe things have changed, but like if they do trade him, I have to assume it's going to be for a ton. Like it would absolutely blow my mind. Just when I think that I can't think less of the Royals. If they end up trading Carlos Hernandez for like 50 cents on the dollar, that would be a new low even for them. I don't expect that to happen. It's much more likely they just won't trade him, which Okay, that's fine. But you know who they do need to trade? Obviously Aroldis Chapman. Scott Barlow, who thankfully has restored, he's restored himself his trade value after a really bumpy start to the season.
Yes.
Since mid-April, April 22nd now, 14 and a third innings, 6 hits, 5 walks, 21 strikeouts, no homers. Maybe his trade value's dropped 10%, but it still should be very high. And he's going to be a free agent at the end of next season? Yeah, at the end of next, there's absolutely zero excuse for not trading him this year by the trade deadline. And here's the question: do you consider trading him and Aroldis Chapman in a package in order to get a truly elite or prospect or two really really good prospects in the same trade?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
teams are
Yes.
reluctant. There's nothing that teams are reluctant to mortgage the future for one reliever. But if you can give them an entire bullpen transplant, there are a few teams out there. I mean, even the Rays. The Rays actually are, they're seeing some cracks in their foundation with their bullpen. They've had quite a few injuries to some of their starting pitchers. You talk about they're having to get a lot more innings out of their bullpen, and they've blown some leads against good teams. I could see the Rays being a team, for instance, that would like not just one, like if they can get two quality relievers, high end back of the bullpen relievers, they'll give you something really good for it. There are a lot of teams out there that would go for that. So it's time. The Royals should already be talking to teams. Maybe they're not going to make a move right this moment, but if JJ Piccolo is not exploring all of those options now and trying to find that one team that may be a little bit desperate and maybe willing to make a move in mid-June, early June, and get 2/3 of a season and remake their bullpen well before the trading deadline, and potentially overpay for that. Like, he's not doing his job if he's not doing that.
All right. Tell me, let's get to our minor league minute. First of all, let's talk about which player do you want to talk about? Nick Lofton?
So, yeah, I figure this week I want to talk about Nick Lofton because, trying to find positivity in the minor leagues has been a bit of a challenge. But Nick Lofton has really he's kind of done what Michael Massey has done, which is he had a fairly disappointing April. He had 2 walks and 13 strikeouts in the month of April, and had a 242 on base percentage. But since beginning of May, he's really turned it on. He is hitting 322 with a 396 OBP and a 529 slugging average in the month of May, 11 walks against 9 strikeouts. So more walks than strikeouts, OPS over 900, playing mostly third base, and excellent contact rate. This is the guy who's always had elite strikeout rates, but got to AAA last year and his strikeout rate fell apart. He was tired at the end of the year, put on some muscle this offseason, and his strikeout rate this year is like 12%, which is exceptional. And one of the reasons I want to talk about, yes, he's having a good year overall, although quietly the International League, where Omaha plays, has been a very high offense league this year. The league OPS is like 790. So you have to take a grain of salt with all the hitters' numbers. At the same time, a lot of the pitchers the Royals have in AAA that have been terrible, maybe a little less terrible than they look. But the other thing to consider here is if Nick Lofton really is establishing himself as a good, not great, but good prospect, and you've got Bobby Witt playing shortstop every day, and Michael Garcia is having a very nice rookie season, certainly as good as you can be without really hitting for any power at all. He's handling the bat well, hitting around 280, not striking out a ton, playing good defense. Michael Massey has suddenly turned it around. You have Nicky Lopez, who got 4 hits today and bumped his average up 45 points. Is this a time to be transactional? Because I don't see a spot for Nick Lofton right now. And is he a player that you can trade? Or is Michael Garcia a player you can trade? Or Nicky Lopez or Michael Massey? If you're not going to trade Bobby Witt, like, you have more players than you have positions for. These are valuable defensive positions. So the positional value, you do not want to move a third baseman to first base because you're going to lose a lot of value there. So I think this is another challenge for JJ Piccolo going into the trading deadline, is maybe it's time to trade some of your younger guys, some of your prospects, in order to not because you're playing for now, but because you need to get talent at positions where you're weak. But can you do that without, trading a dollar bill for 2 quarters?
How about 12 consecutive wins from Quad Cities?
It's impressive. For a team that was, I think, 10-21 before that, the high A ball team, and now is over 500. it's definitely a very good sign. The concern I have with that is they're doing that no thanks to Gavin Cross, who after a very nice week last week, I think was 1 for 21 this week with 11 strikeouts. And really the cloud over your first round pick last year, the 9th overall pick in the draft, especially with so many of the guys who were drafted right after him playing well. Some of them, Zach Neto, already in the major leagues. Even though the team is winning, having your first round pick really struggle has taken some of the shine off of that for me. The one guy I want to shout out on the high A ball team though is John McMillan, who's a reliever they signed in 2020. He's one of the many guys they signed the year there was only a 5-round draft, and the Royals were able to convince a ton of players to sign with them, who were not drafted but would have been like 6th through 10th round picks. And McMillan is a reliever, but he's been touching 102. And he started the year in low A ball, was so dominant they promoted A ball. He's already ready for double A. He's 25. He's not young, but he has been absolutely dominant. And as a reliever, sometimes those guys, they find their command, and then in the span of 3 months, they go from A ball to the major leagues. So John McMillan is absolutely a name to keep in mind as a potential bullpen piece by next year. I just wish Gavin Cross was hitting.
Yeah, no, I think we all, including the Royals, wish that Gavin Cross was hitting. It would make everybody feel a lot better. And that is one of the scary things as we're looking around the corner. I'm going to start talking more about the draft. And it's one of the things that, like, where we sit right now, I have not seen enough development to say that if JJ Picollo comes to the end of the season, the same people he heads into 24, planning on the same people drafting and the same people developing, you got a problem.
Here's the one thing I'll finish with. A listener of the program, a friend of mine.
By the way, do you know the answer to this? Is Asa Lacy pitched? He is still.
He's still with the organization. Yes. Has he thrown in a game? No. He might have pitched an extended spring training.
I'm getting the vibe that there are not many in that organization that think anything's ever going to come from Asa Lacy.
Wonder where those people were 2 years ago, but anyway, the person who drafted him is no longer here.
Oh, they weren't. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say they weren't the president of baseball operations.
No,
I can say that.
The one thing I will say, a friend pointed this out. Kylie McDaniel, who writes for ESPN, recently just
5
days ago. Sorry,
we did this on the show.
You did know. Yes, I believe. Yeah, basically, he went through the top 50 prospects in the sport, but also threw in a bunch of like honorable mentions. It was close to 100 names. I don't know exactly.
It was 109.
109 names, and 29 different organizations had at least one player mentioned. The Royals were the 30th. And if you want to understand why I'm so frustrated, why I'm...
Let me be clear, because Randy said that in a creative way, but not a blunt way. They talked about 109 prospects in baseball, which there are 30 teams in baseball. It means on average, everybody should have had about 3.5, a little more than 3.5 on that list. 29 teams had at least one player on it. One team didn't. That team was the Royals.
Correct. Yes, I'm trying to be nice, but I'm kind of tired of being nice because if you want to come up with a very succinct reason why the Royals should blow everything up in the front office and start completely over and not just half-ass at this time, it's that they have the second worst record in baseball and maybe, I mean, at least by that measure, the worst farm system in baseball. Certainly a bad farm system. That is unacceptable. And 6 years into a rebuilding project, that's almost inexplicable. I mean, for God's sake, we've mentioned the Orioles, we've mentioned the Pirates. The Detroit Tigers are like 2 games out of first place in an extremely winnable division.
Yeah,
these are teams that have no business being 3, 4, 5 years ahead of the Royals.
Well, and that's there are 2 things I'll hit on that. One, let's mention, and I think it's a good point. Mazzicato's been playing pitching really well. He said he's literally number 1 on the Fangraphs A-ball. This from Drury and Horror Stories, which I love that. And I think that's interesting. I will say though that it's time for him to be moved. I mean, there are guys behind him that are already in the big leagues, and so I think that's part of what's being factored in here. I think the Royals are either slowing down their development process or they're shining guys up. Okay. And to your point about trading some prospects for things that you need, I think they may be shining guys up. A lot of that low A team has got all these incredible strikeouts per 9. I think they're shining guys up to finish off a deal. Maybe they're going to get 3 minor leaguers and and give away 2 big leaguers and 1 minor leaguer. And they're shining up as many guys as they can down there. I think that's part of what's going on.
If they are, then that means they're going to be transactional, which would be very new for them.
Yes,
so
which would be great.
Let's hope that we start to see some of that.
Yes. I think the other thing might be that you're seeing JJ Piccolo say the way Dayton was doing it with just 4 teams was wrong. And I'm going to slow down pumping these guys through the system. One, they're not my draft picks now. He was involved in it, as we all know, but I'm going to do it differently. And so I am interested to see if this is just a organizational shift. Okay, yes, Mazzucato is blowing guys away with the strikeouts. He's also walking too many. Still. So are they now going to finally get to the point where you will not be promoted, no matter how good the other things are, unless you know the strike zone? Maybe that's what we're watching. Or like I said, maybe they're shining up prospects to make them better. I do think that's part of the equation as well. But they simply have to be better in the minor leagues. I mean, that's goes without saying.
My honestly, I feel like I'm in a bit of a dark funk with the Royals over the last weekend. Honestly, it's probably more the performance of the minor leagues. Really digging through the minor leagues this week, you look at there are green shoots. There are guys who have taken a step forward this year, but almost invariably those are guys who were not elite prospects before the season. So you have the guys on the 21 to 30 range who look a little bit better, but among the top 10 prospects in the organization before the season, who has taken a step forward?
Oh.
Frank Mazzucato might be the one shining exception to that rule. Like he looks good, but that's about it. Who else is better?
You talked about of the top prospects, none. There isn't. You can't find any of them. They're all struggling. Even Caden Wallace is kind of backing up the bus a little bit right now. Here's the other thing that I would point out why it's so important about the minor leagues. And then we'll get out of here, and that is this: Dayton Moore preached he wanted to build it back and build it back better to where this wasn't going to be a window and then a massive rebuild. They are barreling towards a window. If they get it right, when you have no system behind the guys that are here, even if we talk about the positive that 7 of the 9 guys are 25 or younger, Nicky Lopez was in that lineup. He was 28. If they all hit, they're all going to be free agents within like a 2-year window anyway. So it's the same thing as they had the last time. That's another reason to trade some of the guys that you have now is to space out, they all have boards of where the teams are. You can look at them on you can just go to Spotrac for God's sake, see when everybody becomes free agents. And I'm fine if you want to keep all this group, but you get all that group up there and they're all going to be free agents in the same year.
I know what you're saying, but it's a testament to how low this organization has sunk that if you tell me right now the Royals are going to have a window, sign me up because
but you and I both know that was lightning in a bottle. They really did. 14 to 15 was lightning in a bottle.
But at this point, I'd settle. Like my point is, we're worrying about when these guys are going to become free agents. I understand if they don't succeed before that. You know what I'm saying? Like they need more talent, regardless of when those guys.
Of course they do, but wouldn't you agree? Planning to have a window is a fool's errand to begin with, because the likelihood that you'll stay healthy enough with just this group, you need good players in the minor leagues to come up and play for when guys get hurt.
My concern,
and they don't have that.
My concern is that they don't have enough talent in the organization right now to even make that window a reality, even if they do keep all these.
Agreed.
To me, that's the bigger concern. Agreed. Is, step one, amass as much talent as you can. Step two, then you start to shape that talent to decide if you have too much pitching and you want to move for hitting, or if you have too many guys who are going to be free agent at the end of 2026. That's a secondary thing. First step, amass enough talent to be a contender. I'm worried based on what we're seeing in the minor leagues this year, seeing what we're seeing in the major leagues this year, they may not have enough talent to do it with what they have now. And, I'm starting to think something that I wasn't thinking 3 months ago, which is, do they need to blow this up?
Yes.
Start from ground zero. And it's another 4 or 5 years. But you know what? If I can't remember if it was Dayton Moore or somebody who said that, if you keep focusing on 5-year plans, pretty soon 5-year plans become 20-year plans. And as Royals fans are very aware, it is indeed possible to go 20 or 29 years of rebuilding, because you never get it right. And if the Royals didn't get it right, you've got to go back and start over. But if you do that, you're going to have to do it with a completely new front office.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete is Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. If you've got parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear since 1994. Don't let the first impression your business makes with a potential client be a bumpy, bad parking lot that has them wondering what kind of shoddy work do you do. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete make a great impression with a beautiful new parking lot. Call them today at 816-484-3338. Online, they're at Gann Asphalt. .com. That's Gann with two N's, GannAsphalt.com. That's going to do it for us. So for the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on